But before we do that, we got to get into the news that just happened yesterday. Denzel Mims, wide receiver for the New York Jets, who actually was a former second-round pick, selected 59th overall in the 2020 NFL Draft. 6'3", runs a 4.38, 4.37. And we kind of we've been talking about the wide receiver core for the Lions, how, you know what, they could use one more guy somewhere, especially the first 6 games without Jameson. Sam Flannel, they get one. Essentially nothing. I mean, they traded away a conditional 6th-round pick, and the Jets threw in a 7th-round pick. So, I mean, for the Jets to move up a little bit, it's essentially nothing. For a guy who has 1 year left on his deal.
I mean, before I let Lucas go, I'm just going to say that I am intrigued. This is a high upside potential signing, I will say. But Lucas, I know you were very, very excited in the morning Woodward show prep. And so were you, JB. So I want you guys to give your thoughts first, especially since Lucas, if you guys didn't know, he loves to break down wide receivers. So go right ahead. Tell us about Denzel Mims.
Denzel Mims. That's who we just got. Now, look, I don't think this guy is going to be a 1,000-yard receiver for us. But in this first 6 weeks of the season, Denzel Mims is exactly what the Detroit Lions needed. If you talk about truly, he's got the frame of an ex-wide receiver, and like we already mentioned, he runs a 4.3. So that speed that we're going to need against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Seattle Seahawks, the Minnesota Vikings, that big play potential that the Lions are lacking right now with Jameson Williams out, it's exactly what I was about to say Jalen Reagor because of the Vikings, but it's exactly what Denzel Mims brings to the table here. I think, being honest, the potential that he has, if everything goes right, we're talking about a 2nd-round pick who wanted to be traded out of New York last year. Now he gets traded, so he has something to prove. He's the same height as Josh Reynolds, can do everything that Josh Reynolds does, and runs a 4.38. And he's got Ben Johnson just like Josh Reynolds does. And Ben Johnson, I mean, I think we can all admit it. He gets the best out of his players. He takes their ability, and even if they're gadget players, he finds a perfect plays to use them in those gadget plays, and that's what's going to happen. I think when you see the end around to J-Mo, when he's not there, it's going to be Denzel Mims. When it's 3rd and 10, and Denzel Mims is on the field, the defense is going to have to take account of that, and you know who that's going to open up? Amon-Ra St. Brown. This guy's not going to be on the field every play, but I could see him cutting into Josh Reynolds' role if everything works out fine.
What do you think, JB?
I mean, Lucas is pretty spot on with that. I think his 1,000-yard seasons are done. He had 2 of those back at Baylor. But the speed, you can't unmatch. Like, that's basically J-Mo-esque speed a little bit. I know it might be broken down just a little bit, but still, this is the Lions' new X-receiver that they're going to have out there while Jameson is gone. And it kind of shows me that maybe Marvin Jones might have lost a step or two. That's why they're trying to look in and invest into another receiver that they can have out there alongside Amon-Ra. So I think this is a very perfect fit.
What about you, Gabby? What do you think?
Gives J-Mo someone to work under and work more directly with, I believe. I think this is a good pairing. I think this gives him an opportunity to, we're seeing him find more of the veterans on the team. I mean, veterans is a loose term. I would say you're seeing him work more with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you're seeing him put himself in a good position, I think, especially with everything that's going on, and I think this only adds to that. And I think this also adds to the narrative that Brad Holmes and Coach Campbell were also talking about when all the drama was coming out with J-Mo initially with the suspension, is that, they can give them the tools, but it's up to them to use those tools that they provide and know that, that door is always open, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. And I think this fits right in with that they're giving him this tool. They're putting, Mims in a situation with a new team. I think it's great for both.
I want to just say, too, on the trade itself, I like the trade. It's great. But the end all be all to me, there's no risk. That's the bigger thing to take away. Whether Denzel Mims is Hims, like Lucas says, I don't care. There's minimal risk. He has 1 year left on his contract. And you mentioned Ben Johnson and what he's done for a lot of different players, but Trinity Benson is somebody that could not be helped. That's just, quite frankly, it is what it is.
Don't bring up Trinity Benson.
And I have to, because the last time that Brad Holmes traded for a wide receiver, it was Trinity Benson. And it didn't work out the way the Lions planned initially, but Denzel Mims is not Trinity Benson. I think he'll be better. But the reality is, when Trinity was traded for, he was great in preseason. You traded for him, and he ended up being nothing. So for Denzel Mims, you get a guy through the first 6 weeks who can play that X, can be that big body guy to play alongside Amon-Ra. You knew Marvin Jones isn't that dude anymore to at least stretch the field. They don't really have anybody. And Antoine Green, there was a lot of pressure on that man to get situated and get ready
pick
before
too.
Exactly, before the season. So it kind of takes some pressure off of Antoine. It takes pressure off Dan in the offense, Ben Johnson. And now you get a guy that can compete for that spot. So I love it. There's little risk involved, whether Denzel Mims becomes anything or not. The most attractive thing about Mims is not his production, obviously, but the yards per reception. Throughout his entire career, 3 years so far, he's averaged 16.1 yards per reception. Big play guy. And that's what you need here in Detroit. So regardless, I love the trade. Not a lot of risk. And again, for Ben, who turned Khalif Raymond, and I don't want to say it was all Ben, but helped Khalif Raymond become a solid wide receiver. Like, this is a guy who played special teams his whole career. Started playing wide receiver, was really damn good at it, and he flourished in this offense. So don't tell me these guys aren't going to have the tools to succeed. It's up to them. Like, Mims is going to get the opportunity, especially the first 6 weeks. So I love it. Brad Holmes continues to, especially in this phase of the rebuild, whatever you want to call it, take low-risk moves, like just low-risk, potentially high-reward moves. That's all you can ask for, Sam Flannel.
I'm a savage. Whatever I want to do.
All right, so
Brad Holmes was cooking while everybody else was sleeping.
Okay, well, all right, let me, before I really get into my soliloquy, I will just say this. Denzel Mims is obviously a big body wide receiver, at least tall. He's fast. I actually like what I saw from him his rookie season with the New York Jets when he was playing on that rat-ass 2-14 team with Sam Darnold in that terrible situation. I mean, in 9 games, he had 357 receiving yards on 15.5 yards per carry. I thought that was going to springboard him into a big role with the New York Jets. But that being said, you know how sometimes in life, everyone in the room, you need your mom to kind of tell you everything is going to be okay. I see this from all of you in this room. I saw that from even Matt Broder and Booner on Twitter last night, just like, oh, Brad Holmes, fleece, cooking, Denzel Mims, great move, amazing, wonderful. I just have a couple of questions to ask, and this is right now when maybe I'm going to be your guys' dad. You guys need a little dad time. And as the great movie Remember the Titans always says, it's like, is this your time or is this your daddy's time? Mine. And I just got to have a couple of questions to ask.
You're not my daddy, Sam.
Well, you know what? I am going to be the dad figure in this situation because I have a couple of questions to ask.
Okay.
And I think this is fair.
Okay.
All right. In the last 2 seasons, why did Denzel Mims fail to get 200 receiving yards at either of them? I think that's fair at this point because I'll let you hear. Go ahead, Lucas. What do you think?
I think they already moved past him. When they drafted Garrett Wilson, that was their focus. I think Denzel Mims needed help because he was playing in the Big 12, so obviously the secondary is not going to be as good. I think he just, as a whole, was failed in New York, and then he voiced his want to get traded there, so they're like, yeah, we're not going to worry about this guy at all. Like, if somebody wants to get him, come get him, but if not, it's speed. We're going to hang on to speed, especially when we have Zach Wilson. They could use all the weapons they could have. I just don't think there was much of a trade value for him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, they were going to release him anyway if they didn't come to a deal with some team. But, Sam, to answer your question, I guess my input would be, besides, not having a quarterback, which, matters to some extent, Garrett Wilson's talented. He thrived with 4 of them. But they never really had a dude in New York. But the other part of that is, through his career so far, Denzel Mims has a 45.7 catch percentage. So, that's part of it. Got targeted 25 times last year, only came down with 11 of them. So that's part of it. A lot of potential, but the production hasn't been there. Well, to your point.
And that's the thing. I see people in the chat even saying Sam doesn't know ball. Is that really an unfair question? Why he literally has not had 200 receiving yards in either of the last couple seasons? That is a completely fair question. There may be all kinds of context, but after 2020, I thought that he was actually going to springboard into something. And so far, again with Remember the Titans, man, he ain't done nothing in the NFL yet.
That's fair, Sam.
Okay, thank you.
I wouldn't be as excited about this trade for the Detroit Lions if we didn't have Ben Johnson as our offensive coordinator. I think that's the thing that kind of ties it all in because, all right, maybe this dude can't catch as good as you want him to do, but Ben Johnson's going to get the ball in his hand some way when you have 6'3", 4'3", running down the field. No DB or safety is going to want to see that.
All right, and that's all well and good, and I actually think that there's potential for Denzel Mims to be valuable on this team, but I have another question to ask because I've seen a lot of the same comments of, oh, he played with terrible quarterbacks his entire career, which, to be fair, he pretty much did. I mean, Sam Darnold with a terrible situation, then Zach Wilson both led the team in passing yards the past couple of seasons. But here's what that cannot explain. Why in 2021 This is Zach Wilson's year where he played the majority of the year. Why was Denzel Mims 10th on his own team in receiving yards? Why did he get less than 10 receptions? And here's a couple of the names of people that actually had more receiving yards than him that year.
God.
Ty Johnson, Michael Carter, Ryan Griffin, and Tyler Kroft. I'm just saying, like, those are legitimately fair questions.
Fair.
And then in 2022, another season where it was like, oh, it's got to be Zach Wilson, Mike White, and Joe Flacco's fault.
Right.
Wrong. I will tell you why that's wrong. Because in 2022, he was 8th on his own team in receiving yards, behind Michael Carter again, CJ Uzama, who had fallen way off, and Breece Hall, who played 7 games. I get it that he's got a lot of upside and a lot of potential, but he has shown a whole lot of bupkis in New York, and I think that's a fair question. I think by now he would qualify as table scraps. Table scraps that definitely has a ton of potential to be a great meal, but by those numbers, right now he is table scraps.
Well, that's why you were able to get what you got for him, or give away what you gave away for him, which was minimal. There's nothing, because if he worked out, you wouldn't be able to get him. So I get what you're saying, but that's the reason the Lions were able to acquire him for, what, a 6th-round pick, but you got a 7th-round back because of how it worked out with the New York Jets. And part of that, too, and Eric Allen kind of spoke on this, and I already kind of alluded to it earlier with the amount of quarterbacks he played for. How many of those targets were actually catchable? I don't know. But but to your point, but to your point, though, I'm trying to be fair here. Other guys produced. So some guys like Denzel Mims, they need to hold that accountability. It didn't work out in New York, but you can't say, hey, for basically free, you get a guy who is basically an athletic specimen. I mean, 6'3", runs a 4.3, and hopefully Ben can get something out of him. But Sam, even if he doesn't, cool. Adios.
All right, but all I'm saying is those were the type of questions. I think those are the most basic level questions that I was asking that weren't even being posed on Twitter. It was just seen as this massive fleecing and this big win. I mean, by people in this very room, by people in our group chat, by people at this very network. I don't understand that no matter what Brad Holmes does at this point, it's automatic. He cooked. He won. I get it that Brad Holmes has been the best GM we've ever seen, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that every move he's going to make is going to be the superstar acquisition.
I would respond with this. You're right, but the other part of it is you look at what Brad gave up and what he got. Now, what he got, Denzel Mims, isn't some all-pro caliber wide receiver, but there is a lot of potential still there. And whether he figures it out or not, it doesn't matter, quite frankly. The bigger part is Brad Holmes beat out I saw the Patriots were reported interested in Denzel Mims. I saw the Steelers were interested. I saw the Cowboys were interested. There were multiple teams interested in Denzel Mims, and you still basically got him for free. So whether it works out or not, hey, cool. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, there's no risk. And that's why I think people give Brad Holmes the credit, because he didn't give up really anything at all. You get a guy who still has some potential, 1 year left. You're not tied up with him for multiple years. And you gave up essentially a bag of barbecue chips.
Sure. I mean, I get it. Let me just respond to Paul Thomas really quick, because I think Paul Thomas just wasn't listening to something that I said. Thanks for the stats, Flannel. You're welcome, by the way. You're going to get them every single day. Would be nice if Denzel, I don't know, maybe had an actual quarterback to throw him to. Crazy thought. If you didn't listen about maybe 3 to 4 minutes ago, then explain this, Paul Thomas. Why in 2021 was he 10th on his own team in receiving yards? Why in 2022 was he 8th on his own team in receiving yards? Why could guys like Elijah Moore or Garrett Wilson, for example, or even Braxton Berrios or Jamison Crowder or guys like that, why could they produce? Corey Davis, why could they produce more than Denzel Mims? It's not just about what he did. It's about what he did relative to his own teammates. And a lot of them are guys that you would consider cast-offs that produce at a significantly higher level than him. Come on, Paul Thomas. Listen to me when I speak.
I love this comment. Taylor says, real question is, how many targets is Mims taken away from TK85?
You know what? Hey, I'll tell you what, though. Denzel Mims, I think he's going to push Tom Kennedy even further to the practice squad where he belongs. Zero reception season for Tom Kennedy. Hey, Neil, D-Max, Spencer, I'm getting the coffee. Not you. Me.
And then Tyler says you'd get more receptions from a Denzel Washington DVD. Well, that's fair.
At this, 2021, he had 8.
That's fair.
Denzel Mims had 8, right?
Yeah, that is true.